Hello and welcome to another Fresh Up Stalls. Not that fresh this time, I'm still in my pyjamas because it's the morning after. Two reasons why I'm doing it the morning after today. One, I got home a bit late and was a bit tired and just wanted to go to bed and didn't think me stood in front of the camera half asleep would really make for good YouTube viewing. Secondly, I don't know if I'd actually been able to have said much last night. So what I've been to see is Blush of Dogs at the Tabard Theatre. First time ever at the Tabard Theatre as well, which is nice to me, despite the fact living in London 6 years and I've never been. Yeah, so this is a sort of modern reworking of the Greek myth of Thyestes? Oh, the Thyestes has got a lot of nice fine. Anyway, that's beside the point. Well, maybe it is later. I don't know. Yes, it's reworking of a Greek myth by Roland Reynolds. And I kind of thought like, oh, modern reworkings of Greek tragedies. We've seen this a million times. So I will admit I went with slightly low expectations. But oh, good grief, were those expectations blown out of the water. This is something that is... It's probably one of the most original things I've seen on the Fringe recently. And I've seen loads of great things, but this was just totally nuts. But not in an uncontrolled way, not in an uninspired thinking way or lazy way. This was very deliberate. And very, very adventurous. So it's kind of setting the Greek myth, I suppose, in sort of modern dystopia. I say suppose because, and I might as well just get straight on to Roland Reynolds' writing. What I love about Roland Reynolds' writing, it has this sort of air of classical theatre. You know, there's some blank verse at points, some very sort of rich, complex language, but at the same time, you get that sort of sense of that, but it kind of very sort of gradually and almost unnoticeably rolls into something that's very modern. It doesn't feel like a classical pastiche. It feels like something that's very, very fresh and current, even though the themes are very Greek. Well, it is a Greek tragic myth. So it was just excellent. I just don't know where to start. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have as many words as I want when I come to do my written review. Attending tonight was a friend of mine, Tom Wicker, who's writing for Time Out, I think. He has a word limit. I'm just thinking, like, I don't know how you're going to do that. Where do you start with this? It's crazy. I think one of the things I like most about it is that it finds a really unexpected sense and very twisted sense of humour in it, and the humour is in sort of part in farce, part in juxtaposition and irony as well. One of my favourite moments was before the massive sort of the big climax, which is just excessive. I think was the word that some of us who after the show were discussing, that was the word that was used. You just kind of get this, it kind of builds to this really grim crescendo, and all of a sudden you get kind of the two slaves coming on, like, hey up, not quite hey up, they were Yorkshire. That would have been fun though. And kind of the sort of crazy comic ab lib, totally diffusing any sort of sense of tension. And you might think, well, that seems a bit weird. Would that not work? And especially as these sort of things peak and trough throughout the entire show. And it just did. There was just some absolutely ridiculous moments that sort of, it certainly varied the pace. And they weren't so out there that they felt out of place. There's a very sort of, an incredibly dark sense of humour that runs throughout the entire thing. And I just love some of the moments of juxtaposition and just outright craziness. So one of my favourite parts of the entire thing was the Queen, I can't remember the Queen's name now, a ropey Queen. A rope, or I really should. I didn't go to a public school. I didn't learn Greek, so this is all Greek. Oh, I'm not even going to go there. So she's there, sort of pouring her heart out, trying to leave a message for her husband that's deep and stuff. And at the same time, Atreus and Thyestes, so the king and his brother, in both in pairs of very small black pants, having this incredibly homoerotic baby oiled up wrestling fight at the other side of the stage. It's insane. You kind of got this wonderful sort of juxtaposition, these two things which just you wouldn't thought would go together, and you wouldn't think would actually work for dramatic effect, but it actually made it so much more complex, so much more weird, and in some ways so much more effective. I just can't. I know that when I said a lot of these things, I can't process it. I'm still struggling. I really am still struggling to get my head around this. But it's absolutely brilliant. I think it does at some points. I think some of it's a bit too verbose. It's a bit wordy. I wouldn't go if you're expecting, a fast-paced action. But what Roland Reynolds does, even though it's a bit slow, it really explores this sort of. If you think The Simpsons are a dysfunctional family, you've not seen this lot. It puts Oedipus to shame. It has very human exploration. There's some very, very deep themes that are being brought out here, both abstract and sort of more obvious. I love the theme of blindness. So one of the main characters is Tiresias. They're the sort of blind intersex prophet. Who's blind, cannot see, but can also see. But so there's this theme of blindness, but it also goes more abstract. It's like, what about the blinkered, blind visions of the other characters? Which is a real theme I loved throughout. In fact, even though it's the prophet who's blind, it's the main characters, the royalty, are probably even more blind to what is actually going on, because they're so steeped in pride and their own egos and their own grand visions of what they want to achieve, that they don't see the obvious coming. Talking about the excess, I'll touch on briefly, and I suppose that can kind of go into Isabella van Brakkel's design as well. I don't think I ever expected so much gore on the fringe. And gore, I know, has been something that's been brought up recently, especially with Titus Andronicus at Shakespeare's Globe, where how much gore do you need in theatre before people start fainting? This didn't make me faint. It made me feel a little faint. I just wasn't expecting it. The whole crescendo, and I'm not going to give it away, was absolutely ghastly. And I don't mean ghastly as in rubbish. I mean ghastly as like, this is so messed up and done really well, especially for something on the fringe. Lots of fake blood, some surprising meats. That's all I'm saying. And I just sat there at the end feeling slightly sick, just totally a gulp at where the show goes. And that's another thing about the entire thing, especially with the sort of general sort of comic interactions. You just don't know where this is going. It's genuinely surprising. I'm getting really fractious in this. Loved Isabella van Brakkel's design. It's going to sound a little rude, but it kind of reminds me of some 70s gay porn, and that's not that. I don't mean that's a bad thing, or maybe sort of Pink Narcissus is probably the less porny thing I should have used. Kind of, it's you've got these wonderful sort of classical sort of columns, some crumpled, some not, and this sort of really sort of shimmery backdrop, and it looks sort of almost fantastical, but at the same time grotty. It's kind of this like almost dystopia of, not so much dystopia actually, this post-apocalyptic kingdom that we have before us. The masks were brilliant. I thought they were excellent, especially those for the chorus of slaves, where all the characters play and pop up. Some really high quality stuff being made here. I love the use of the gas mask for symbolising the prophet. So another thing, all the actors play their three main characters, and then all the other ones, including all three actors taking turns to play the prophet. I love that. I love it. It has a sense of blindness. It's very creepy at the same time. I love the bits of orange and all the rubbish around. It looks great. It looks crazy. It looks surreal, and it's such high quality. The costumes as well. I know you're usually supposed to wash costumes, but I don't think they have for this, and they look disgusting and gross, and that's the point. They're supposed to look totally shabby and grim, but there's also wonderful... the director was sitting across the aisle from me, and he must have thought I was looking at Ben Alderton's bum at one point. I wasn't. I was genuinely checking out the detailing on his shorts. That is true. They've got some wonderful sort of... It looks like sort of glitter dirt. That's the only thing I can describe it as. And it's sort of caked on his shorts, and I thought, like, this is some real attention to detail. This looks absolutely fantastic. Also, he has a nice bum. Yeah. He held my hands and maybe touched his chest at one point. The most action I've seen all week. Thank you, Ben Alderton. Speaking of the cast, brilliant. So much energy. I mean, you can just see even like 20 minutes into play, you start seeing the sweat pour off them. I think they're all really... It's so difficult to... They're all very versatile. They all switch between their characters very well. They all bring, most interestingly for me, they all bring three slightly different interpretations to the prophet, which I think was really interesting. I started trying to overanalyzing it, saying, but he can see into each of their minds, so they in turn are each of him. Maybe, maybe not. Let's just watch the play. They're great. I really love Ben Alderton as the king, sort of very domineering, but very, very vulnerable and neurotic at the same time. Mike Cosella, mainly as Tyrtius, his brother, ridiculously hot, sort of brims of a sort of very sort of arrogant sexuality, which is kind of what it needs for the role, but wonderful as well. I really loved Anna Proctor as the Queen as well. Sort of very sort of, she has a sort of airs of graces. Sort of, she's very well mannered, but she's a crazy person underneath, and I kind of really get that. I love how she's sort of like, it's really odd. She's kind of comes on. It's almost like she's completely disconnected, not just from the play, but from the entire auditorium. It's really weird. Some people could say that that's terrible. I liked it though. It's just sort of, she sort of floats almost like a ghost. At some point, she talks about her being unseen. I love this. Really go and see this. I wasn't expecting much, and this is certainly not what I was expecting. I don't think it ever would have been what I was expecting, because I don't think you can kind of expect this kind of theatre. It's totally out there. It's highly original. It's just absolutely mad, and it comes from a real place of inspiration and creativity. Roland Reynolds has done a marvellous job. I'm so thankful he sort of reached out to me out of the blue to say, do you want to come review my play? And I was like, all right, I will. And I did. I will be writing up a full review. I'm really hoping I can put my thoughts into something a bit more coherent. It's going to be so difficult with this, because it's just insane, and it's wonderful for it. I'm going to leave it there because I've witted on for 30 minutes now, embarrassed myself a few times, and I probably should get ready for work, do something with my hair. I'm thinking I should probably give my hair its own show. It's getting that big. And, you know, after seeing a load of Greek tragedy, as I posted on Twitter last night, Medusa ain't got nothing on me, darling. So thank you very much, Roland Reynolds. Roland Reynolds, not Roland Rowlands. Roland, yeah. Roland Reynolds and the Fragan Theatre Company and the Tabard. It's lovely to go to a nice little fringe theatre, which I hadn't been before. Great to see a new piece of work that is just... Yeah, I'll try and find a suitable adjective in due course. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.